Hey everyone, this is Colin with Connect the Watts, and this is our complete overview and beginner's guide of the GoPro Hero 11 Black. So if you're an expert with GoPro, this isn't probably going to be the best video for you, but if you're just getting started, I'm going to go over everything that you should know. Now, in order to turn the GoPro on, you just hold the power button down for a few seconds. You'll hear a few beeps, and you can see that it's on. You don't, however, always need to turn the GoPro Hero 11 on in order to record. In fact, I keep it off most of the time when I'm doing my runs or biking or whatever. Instead, I'll leave it off, but I'll push the record button when I want to record. And if you have the settings set up that way, it'll turn it on, it'll record, and then when you're done recording, you can just push the record button again. The recording will stop and it'll power off. And this is a great way to save battery while you use your GoPro. Now, in terms of battery, the storage for that is on the side here. And to open that up, you just grab this latch here, pull it down, and open it. And here you'll find the included Enduro battery, which you can pull out if you would like to. And if you want to have an additional battery, you can order more of these on the GoPro website. But if you just need one, you can typically just leave it in here the whole time. Also, here is the USB-C port, so you can charge it or attach the camera to a computer. In addition to the micro SD card, which slots in right here, you kind of have to poke it with your fingernail to kind of pull it out. So it can be a little tricky, but it comes out pretty easily just like that. And of course, you can just put it right back in, press it down, and close the latch. Now, another thing about this latch is it can occasionally pop off, and that's okay. It's actually designed to, so don't worry if it falls off. It's not broken. You can simply take this latch and put it back on, just like that. Just have it snap back in and put it on. Now, on the other side, you'll see an additional latch here, and you might think that you should try to pry this open, but actually you shouldn't do that. It's actually an additional mic. So there's 3 mics on the GoPro Hero 11, one on the front, one on the top, and one on the side here. And this one is designed to expel water out when you're using it. So that's kind of why it's set up this way. So don't try to pry that off. Now on the bottom here, you'll see the mounts, and you can just pull these together. And if you have any included GoPro accessories, this will work with any of those. And also down here are the speakers. And if you notice that the speakers start to sound pretty bad, it might just need a little bit of cleaning down here. Okay, so when you first turn your GoPro on, it should look something like this. And at the top left, you'll see how much time you have left to record on your memory card. In the middle, it'll show you your current recording mode, whether you're filming video, you have the camera on, or if you're doing a time lapse. On the right is your percentage of battery. And down here, we'll cover this in just a second, but the most important thing that you should know is that right now, when you first get the GoPro Hero 11 Black, it actually comes shipped to you in what they call easy mode. So to change this, you need to swipe down, and this will allow you to adjust a lot of these settings. And you'll swipe to the right, and where it says controls under easy, click on that and then swipe up so that it changes to pro. And this will unlock a lot more options for you. The easy mode is really designed for somebody who isn't watching a YouTube video like this, but since you're watching a video, you'll want to change it to pro so you'll be able to have access to all of the controls. Now to get out of the menu, just swipe back up, and you'll see that the screen here shows a few more options. Now, these are all shortcuts to various features with the GoPro, and we'll go over those in just a second. But the most important thing is your current recording mode. So if you click on this down here, it'll open up and show you several preset recording settings. And these are just preset by GoPro themselves. And we're gonna mess around with them, but I do want to show you that if you click this button on the top right here, this will allow you to reset any of these settings should you want to go back to the original ones that GoPro shipped with. So you can see that the full frame mode here, I had adjusted. So if I push right here, I can restore that preset and it'll go back just to the way they sent it. Also, if you want to create additional custom modes that aren't included on these, you can just push the plus here and that'll allow you to create an entirely new preset. Okay, so now let's go ahead and adjust this first preset, standard. And we're not going to adjust all of them, but I do want to show you some of the various settings and explain what they do and also give you some suggestions. So here you'll see RES/FPS, that stands for resolution in frames per second. And so this is really how you're going to determine the video quality. So you can record in 5.3K and 4K and 1080p. Now, if you have plenty of storage, you should probably leave this at the highest setting. But if you're a little bit more limited on storage and you don't really need the highest quality, you could always adjust it down. 4K is still going to be really good. In addition to this, you can change the recording from a 16:9 orientation, which is pretty typical for how we see most videos, a 4:3, which is kind of similar to how TVs used to be, where it's almost a square, and 8:7, which is actually a new option for the GoPro Hero 11. And it's actually a really nice option to use because it'll capture a much bigger picture, so you can go in and afterwards and create the orientation that you want from that bigger picture. But I think for most people just starting out, leaving it at 16:9 is going to be the option you'll want to choose. Now, in terms of choosing a frame rate, it all depends on if you want to take that video and turn it into a slow motion capture. So if you leave the frame rate at 60 frames per second, that'll allow you to slow the video to 2 times the regular speed. If you have 120 frames per second, that'll allow you to slow it to 4 times the regular speed, and 240 is 8 times as slow as regular speed. In most cases, you're not going to need that much slow motion, and in many cases, I don't use slow motion at all when I'm recording with the GoPro. So if that's the case, you should probably leave it at 30 or 24, so that way it takes up less space. But if you want to be able to use the footage as slow motion, you'll probably just want to leave it at 60. Now, to get out of here, just push that center button, and then we can select the lens. The top 3 options are wide lens. So there's wide, there is super view, which is even more wide, and then there's hyper view, which is even more wide. And basically how that works is it takes this big, wide, high area of view and it compresses it down into that 16:9 view that we would typically see, which is really cool because it allows you to see a ton of what you are seeing on video. Now, in most cases, in most scenarios, if you are wearing the GoPro, like on your helmet or chest, and trying to show what you're seeing, you should probably leave it at super view or hyper view. If you're filming somebody else, you should go down to the bottom and either choose linear or linear plus horizon lock, as this looks a little bit better when you're capturing somebody else. Now, linear plus horizon lock is actually a really cool option for the GoPro Hero 11 Black, because what it does is it locks the horizon in place. So you can literally turn the GoPro around and around, upside down, however you would like, and you're not going to be able to see any of that on video. So it's an incredible tool for stabilization. Next, we have Hyper Smooth. And what this is just the stabilization. So if your footage is moving around a lot, it'll stabilize it so it looks smooth. And I suggest taking it all the way up, because when the footage is stabilized, in order to stabilize it, the camera kind of zooms in and crops off some of the image. And so the more stabilization you need, the more cropped in you need to get. But if you have this auto boost on, it'll give you that big wide range of view when you're more still. And then if you need more stabilization, it'll auto boost and crop in as needed to provide it. And so I think that's the best option for most people, as it works really well. But I would definitely at least have Hyper Smooth on. Of course, you can turn it off to ensure that you have the widest field of view, but I would only leave it off like this if you had it on a tripod and the camera wasn't having to deal with any movement. Next, we have scheduled capture and duration. So if you want to set up the camera and schedule it for a certain time to go off, you can schedule the exact time that you want it to start recording, which is kind of cool. And then you can also go to duration and decide how long you want it to record before it stops. Hindsight is another really useful tool. And what Hindsight does is it allows you to capture 15 to 30 seconds of footage before you press record. And that way, if something really cool happens or you're trying to perform something, but you didn't press record, well, now if you press record, it'll have that past 15 or 30 seconds, whatever you choose here, already recorded for you, so you don't end up missing anything. So a really cool tool to have when you need it. The timer here is just how much of a delay you want from when you press record to when the GoPro starts to record. And typically I will leave this off, unless I'm setting this up for taking a picture. But for video, I typically want it to record right away when I push the button. Now these next set of features are a bit more advanced, but I do have some suggestions for you to make your video quality look a bit better. And again, you do have to keep in mind how much storage you have for these videos, because the higher resolution and better looking we make these videos, the more storage space that they will take up. But if storage space isn't a huge limitation, you may want to turn this 10-bit option on. And what this allows is a lot more colors to be captured by the GoPro, so your images and videos can look a bit better. And of course, if you're editing this with any kind of color gradient software, this will improve that quite a bit as well. You may also want to adjust this bitrate to the high setting. Again, this is going to take up more storage space, but make the videos come out better. For shutter speed, you should definitely just leave that as auto. EV comp, I think you should leave that in most cases to 0 as well. White balance though, this is something I do adjust, because for white balance, the GoPro automatically tries to adjust the image as best as it can, but it sometimes doesn't do the greatest job. And so you usually want to match the white balance to the type of light that's coming in. And if you're outside, which is going to be most cases with the GoPro, you'll want the white balance to be at 5,500 Kelvin, which is the white balance of light when you're outside. And I think you'll find that that makes your images look much better. Now, in terms of ISO min and ISO max, if these aren't set to the lowest and highest of settings, I would suggest adjusting them. So ISO min at 100, and then adjusting the ISO max from 1600 all the way to 6400. And now the higher the ISO is, the worse the image quality is going to look. It's going to look a bit more grainy, but this is not setting the ISO of what it typically will be, just the max that you will allow the GoPro to go to. And having a higher ISO means that it's going to be able to capture better footage as it gets dark. And so if you set the ISO max to the highest setting, that means as the light starts to fade or starts to get a bit darker, you'll still be able to see what you're recording. And I think that's a better option, even if it gets a little bit more grainy, than not being able to see what you're doing at all. So I think in most cases, it's better to have that ISO max set up on the highest setting. For sharpness, you could leave this at medium, but GoPro already applies a good amount of sharpness to that video and image quality. So a lot of times I will lower this and the footage will come out better. So definitely play around with that, but I think you'll find that the low sharpness will give you a better video image in general. Now color is set to natural, which I think doesn't work that well, especially if it's sunny out. I actually prefer to have it set to flat in that case, and it makes the image quality look a bit better, as you can see in the side-by-side here. The other three here are for audio. Now the audio doesn't sound very good at all with the GoPro Hero 11, but if you take this wind mode off, or this wind reduction setting, and you turn that off, the mic sounds a lot better. Now, the one issue with this is you're gonna hear a lot more wind, and so the best overall solution is to try to find a case like this for the GoPro Hero 11, which can work to prevent the wind from making a lot of noise in the mic while still keeping the audio at a much better quality. Finally, here are the shortcuts. So these are the buttons that you'll see on the main screen, and for the most part, I think if you leave these as is, you'll be pretty good to go, but feel free to change them up however you see fit. So now that the preset is saved, we have our frames per second, our lens, our stability, and zoom if that's available. And this is the nice option here, is if you want to be able to capture something in slow-mo, you can quickly adjust this to be able to capture it, or just leave it as you have already set. Also, by the way, if you're going to record and you don't want to see all this, you can tap the middle and it'll all go away. And on the selfie cam on the front, it's the same thing. So if I tap the middle and the back, the selfie cam stuff will go away as well. Now from here, you can swipe left, right, up or down to go to various other areas. So if you swipe up, that'll take you to the video recording, and you can swipe sideways through these videos to check out various recordings that you have. And to get back, you just swipe back up. From here, if you swipe left or right, that'll take you to time lapse, our video, our photo mode. And if you swipe down, that'll take you to other settings and preferences. Now, this first button here, this is for voice control. You can turn this on or off. To be honest, I rarely use voice control, but I do see there are some situations you could use it. And if you want to be able to see like what are the different commands for voice control, just swipe right and go to Preferences. And if you scroll down, you can select Voice Control and then go to Commands, and it'll show you all the various commands that you can use here. Now here is the beeps on or off selection. And I like to keep this on, especially if I can't see the screen of the GoPro when I'm recording, because it'll make 3 beeps when I turn it on to record, and it'll make 7 beeps when I turn the recording off. And this can be useful because sometimes I don't remember if I'm recording or not. So I listen to the beeps to know like, oh, okay, it's recording now, or no, it just turned off. The bunny icon right here is for quick capture. That's the mode you'll need to leave on if you want to do what I do, which is to press the record button even when the GoPro is off, and that'll have it turn on and start recording right away. And then we push the record button again, the GoPro just turns off. A great way to capture footage as you go through a workout or ride or whatever you're doing without having to leave that GoPro on and waste battery. The lock here is for screen lock, so which can be useful in certain situations if you don't want anything to accidentally hit that screen, especially if you're swimming or in the water. To the left bottom here, you can select the front screen options. So this is having a full picture on the screen. If you select here, it'll show you the actual dimensions of the video you're capturing. So it'll kind of squeeze down the image a bit in most cases. Or you can have just a status. So if you don't want to see the image at all, or you can have the screen off. In some cases, you may want that if you want to save battery and you're not using the screen. But typically, I'll just leave it at full screen. This middle bottom setting is orientation lock. And I like this a lot because if I'm using it and it turns, you'll see that it sometimes turns it to this mode, and I don't like that at all, and I just find it annoying. So I just lock in that orientation and it'll stay like this no matter how I turn it, which is my preference. Now this final option here is for the max lens mod, but if you're a beginner to GoPro, you most likely do not have it, and so you should probably just leave that button alone. You won't need it. Now on the left here, this is where we can change the controls from Pro to Easy. Again, leave that as Pro. The video mode, I always have set to highest, but if you want to quickly adjust some of the settings to bring the video quality down, you can do that here. And then we get into preferences. Now here is where you'll be able to adjust auto upload or manual upload settings. And to tell you the truth, I have played around a lot with auto upload and I can never actually get it to work. So I just take this memory card and stick it into my computer and get it that way. But maybe in the future, I'll make an updated video if I can ever get that option to work. Wireless connection, so you can connect it to your internet. General, this is going to be stuff like your beep volume, how long the power stays on before it turns off. And GPS, this will allow you to tag your footage with location, speed, altitude, and more. So if you're doing some editing and want to show some of that information, you'll want to leave that on. Then for displays, you can change the orientation. You can apply the screensaver so it'll turn black after a minute, whether you're recording or not. And you can also adjust the brightness, and you can turn on a rear screen grid. And I actually like having this screen grid a lot of the times. You'll see this little 9 squares here, and this just makes it easier to line up shots for me because I typically want like eyes on that top line orientation. And so there's certain things, if you do a lot of filming or photography, these lines make it just a little bit easier to get the perfect shot that you want. Now going back, you can adjust the date, the language, some mods if you have them, or you can reset all of the settings in general. Now, if you scroll to the right and go to photos, you can see that you'll have different photo presets like you did with the videos. And again, you can adjust all of these as you'd like to. The burst mode is also a nice option too, so it can take several pictures in a row, so you can really capture the right one. But to be honest, in most cases, I just don't use GoPro for capturing pictures because the video quality is so good on the GoPro video and very clear that I typically find it much easier and more realistic to grab a snapshot from any of those videos and just use that as a photo. But if you want the highest quality photo, the photo mode option is going to be a little better. And finally, there is time lapse, and there are several time lapse formats to play with. Time warp, star trails, light painting, vehicle lights. I mean, there's a lot here. And honestly, these are just kind of like fun things to mess around with. And as a beginner to GoPro, Like, I just think it's kind of fun to mess around with them, but you don't need to worry about using those so much unless you're really into time lapses. But in most cases, this is everything that you need to know to have a great start and have a great time and be able to capture great video quality with the GoPro. Now, if you have any questions, let me know in comments and I'd be happy to help. Thanks for watching. Again, this is Colin with Connect the Watts, and I'll see you next time.